Welcome to Right Night. This is one of my older interviews from Sounds of Steam from 2012 through 2014, or one of the interviews I did at a convention along the way. So sit back, relax, and enjoy a little bit of retro interview from myself and others. Okay, and we're here with R.S. Belcher, or Rod Belcher, author of the Golgotha series, loosely given by someone else, not necessarily your choice of terms.
Yeah, it just popped up.
Let me introduce you here to Daphne Duell, one of my co-hosts, and
hello, how you doing?
It's always good to be me. How are you doing?
Fabulous.
So anyhow, it's not actually called the Golgotha series. Oh, and let me do this for you. First book, Six Gun Tarot. Second book, which comes out tomorrow, The Shotgun Arcana, which is kind of a really cool name. It gives it a weird West feel.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Am I in the right?
Yeah, it was funny because the joke was when we came up with Shotgun Arcana for the second one, I was like, what the hell are we going to call the third one? I have no idea, but we're running out of weapons and tarot terms. So,
oh, no, there's got to be a Gatling gun, right?
Yeah, sure. The Gatling gun spread. I don't know. We'll think of something.
Hey, that sounds like you're going to be in Nevada, if you know what I mean.
Buzzing. Well,
moving on from the brothel jokes.
There is a brothel in Shotgun, by the way.
Is there? Well,
yes,
it's a great book to visit for that reason alone.
There you go. The Dove's Roost.
Now, I haven't had a chance to actually pick it up and read it yet. I'm still waiting on my copy to arrive. So, you want to give it a quick breakdown? Let us know why you want to read.
I will try, and I'll try to be brief. If I'm rambling, just somebody throw something at me. It is a weird Western, is the general general genre that gets tossed around the term. It is set in 1870. It's a year after the first book. It is set in a little town in Nevada called Golgotha, which is it was a played out mining town in the first book, which has now experienced a boom. So it's now a boom town again. It is Golgotha is a totally imaginary place. I based it on a whole bunch of ghost towns and things like that I had been researching. And,
okay, because I've heard the term before, and I wasn't sure if it had biblical connotations or where it came from out of history.
Golgotha was the place of Christ's suffering. It's basically where. And
thank you.
The Mormons, when they were cruising through Nevada.
They do.
Yeah, as they are wont to do. Anywhere they stopped and kind of settled, they would give it some kind of a redemption or Bethlehem, or they give it some kind of a biblical name. So I figured Golgotha is a nice creepy sounding,
Absolutely.
And the town has got Mormons. It was founded by it was actually older than the Mormon settlers, but when the Mormons settled there, they named it Golgotha.
And as much as it's a religious term, as you just explained, it also has a really Cthulhu-type feel to the word.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. And I've tried to throw some mythos stuff in there, too. I'm a big fan of...
Nice.
I love H.P. Lovecraft. Some of his stuff is a little bit harder to read than others.
Oh, yeah.
But I enjoy it a lot. And my philosophy when I was writing this thing, because I was like, who the hell is going to buy a horror Western with Cthulhu stuff? And I just kind of threw the kitchen sink in there.
I was going to say all of our listeners, because frankly,
that's a good point.
When I was writing it, I'm trying to remember what the big thing was when I was writing. I think it was still sparkly vampires was the big thing at the time. When I was writing
no wonder you were wondering who's going to buy it.
Yeah, exactly. So, but the new book is a continuation of the story from Six Gun. This town attracts pretty much the best and worst kind of people. It has a supernatural reason for that. It's been likened a little bit to the Hellmouth in Buffy the Vampire Slayer. It's just a town that attracts good people, really good people, and really awful people, and a lot of supernatural weirdness. And it's an ensemble cast. I've worked really hard in both books to not have a main character, and people kind of gripe about that. Well, some people love it and dig it, and other people really can't get their head wrapped around it because they need a point of view.
What do you think, Daphne? Does that appeal, or I heard you?
Well, you know what? I can't speak for other people. I kind of was intrigued by the characters that you had from the last book, the half-human deputy, half-human, half-coyote. Was that it?
Yes.
And the banker's wife, who is in an order of friends.
Yes. Well, and that's sort of the thing is when I started writing this, the whole premise of Golgotha, kind of like the foundation of the town was a little Twin Peaksy. I wanted it to be kind of, this is a town where everybody has a secret, everybody has some kind of weirdness going on, everybody, and that was a lot of fun to write, and it does make for kind of a bizarre little R town kind of a feel to it.
It's got to make your notebook when you're writing hugely thick as you note every person's different quirk or ability or what have you.
And one of the things I have been trying to do with that is, in the book, I will just throw out these references to. At one point, the mayor and the sheriff are talking about, whatever happened to that barber we had? Oh, that giant bat thing flew down and picked him up and carried him off. Oh, that's a damn shame. He was the best barber we ever had in town. And so, folks who live in Golgotha try to present that they are living in a tiny little, sleepy little town, but everybody knows the truth. And if you live there for more than a few months and you live that long, you kind of begin to develop great abilities of denial, and so I kind of throw out through the whole thing that there's been all this weirdness happening in Golgotha for a long, long time, and a lot of folks have really kind of dug that because there'll be a lot of questions from people like, well, are we ever going to find out the story about this thing or story about this thing? There's a passage in the first book where the sheriff, it's basically from his point of view. And the sheriff is going around doing the things he does every day. And one of the things he does is he tends a circle of salt in this old graveyard at the edge of town. Because shortly after he became sheriff a few years earlier, there were these murders. And people were being drained of everything. They're basically like these mummified husks. And there was this weird buzzing sound at night that no one could figure out what it was. And one night he got a note that was slid under the jailhouse door that said, put a circle of salt around this grave, and the killings will stop. And it was written in this very bizarre, old, antiquated, handwritten script. And he did it, and the murders stopped. So now part of his daily ritual is he goes out and tends the circle of salt every day to make sure that nothing disturbs it. I've had dozens of people write me and say, "You got to do something with the circle of salt."
That's awesome.
What is that thing? So
it's nice when you make your world real enough with enough other things filling it in that people want it. They want more.
I agree. And I think I really think the main selling point for Golgotha, or for both the books, is I really did try to make characters people would give a damn about. And they're very flawed people. They have lots of good qualities and bad qualities, but I try to make them as real as I can. And
there's also something to be said for having the multiple character, no main character, because George R.R. Martin does it well, Robert Jordan did it well. So if you do it well, it's awesome because you have many stories that intertwine instead of one story.
And if you've seen the cover to the first one, I agree with you because I just the thing is I knew people needed a gateway because when you start a book, you're sort of like entering into this strange world and like if you're reading Dune. You've got to have some point of reference for Dune.
Just not the movies.
What the hell is going on here? So basically, I introduced a kid. He's a 15-year-old in the first book. He's now 16 in the sequel, named Jim Negri. And Jim is pretty much a fairly decent, normal guy. He is on the run from the law, and he manages to make it to Golgotha under some pretty rough circumstances. And Jim is your gateway character. He is the guy that sort of is your eyes until you get into town. And literally once I got Jim into town, I started going off in other directions with other characters.
You didn't need him anymore. Yeah.
Well, I mean, and he's one of my favorite characters actually. And that's the other thing that really is hard to do is I have so many favorite characters. I like all of them. They're fun to write. Jim, I try to use. I think Jim actually has got a pretty decent role in the second book too. But that is one thing. Is really is hard to say this is the main character or this is the main character. The one thing I really tried very much to do was not have like the sheriff or one of the kind of the stereotypical Western heroes be the main character. I've actually tried to relegate the sheriff to kind of a secondary character status because I don't want that. I've tried to turn as many tropes on their side as I can with this. So and so far I've had a lot of fun doing it. I hope I can keep doing it. So
that's good.
Okay, well, no main characters, but the banker's wife is the best, right?
I really did
best
Maud.
character.
I really did Maud a lot, and apparently a whole bunch of other folks do too. I've gotten a lot of requests for a Maud book. Have her own separate story, and I'm going to pitch that again. I think she could definitely carry a book. Maud Stapleton is a woman. She comes out west with her husband. She is originally from Charleston, South Carolina. Her father is a wealthy man. She inherited a great deal of stuff from one of her female relatives, and also her female relative. And I don't want to give too much away if you haven't read it, but the female relative is a historical character of somewhat mythological proportions. Who is associated with pirates quite a bit. A very famous female pirate, and who happens to have some ties to South Carolina. So, yeah, and
it's like a pop quiz. I got it.
Yeah, I know that.
I think I know it.
and basically, Maud was inducted into basically what would be considered like a cult of Lilith. And it's basically she's been trained by this exceedingly badass old lady to do all kinds of cool stuff. She's had to bury that training because she's become a wife and a mother. And a big part of her story arc in the first one.
I don't know. With some parenting, you might need those skills.
Well, it actually comes in handy because she has to save her kid. And actually, she's training her daughter to do the same things that she was taught. So
nice.
It's a generational kind of cult that dates back to Lilith. But Maud is a very cool character because she's dealing with a lot of issues of she's been sort of forced to conform to the society of the time. She's had to put a lot of what she wants on the back burner for her family. And during the course of the first book, her skills have an opportunity to kind of come back into play. She gets to kind of rediscover herself a little bit, and then she does more of that in the second book. She's a fairly major character in the second book as well.
See, something I've seen other authors do, and you have huge potential in this area from what you're telling me, is they'll go write a short story, 30 pages long or whatever, and slap it up for free on Amazon. And I've seen even Tor authors do this, so I don't know, maybe the folks there can help you out with that. But it's a great teaser way to bring back in, and just from the couple of minutes of what you've told us, you already have like a dozen things you could branch out and do that with.
I've actually got 3 novellas that my agent has been discussing with Tor for the possibility of maybe putting them on Tor.com or something like that.
Right.
I think it'd be a lot of fun to do, and it would give an opportunity to focus on some of the backstories and some of the characters a little bit more. Yeah. So I'm absolutely and the nice thing is each of them would be about the right length. So that if Tor wanted to, hint, they could put them together into an anthology, and basically they'd have a 3 or 4 story anthology for Golgotha. So I think that. And maybe that'll happen. It's sort of like, and you guys are very aware of this. It depends on how well you're doing, how you're selling. If you're selling good, then that's going to be something they might be interested in. And if you're not selling so much, then maybe not. Yeah. Plus, anthologies are a harder sell. I've been told that anthologies are a harder sell than
novels,
unless it's an anthology of folks who they already kind of like own
big
the
names,
story. Yeah, that sort of thing. So
now I want to shift gears here. Because there's a few things I saw, and I was just looking this over, and I was going to ask you about this because you're in Roanoke, and I'm over here, just the other side of Richmond in Virginia. So I was going to ask you about some conventions, and I happened to notice you're a guest next year in February in Mysticon.
Yes, I sure am. know the folks who do Mysticon. They are a great bunch of folks. I've had a lot of fun doing the convention in the past. I'm been very fortunate. I've gotten asked to go to a couple of conventions the last few years. Went to RavenCon up there in Richmond, which is awesome, great fun, and they're wonderful people. And I'm going to get to do my first Rising Star, which is in West Virginia, in about 3 or 4 weeks. It's near the end of October, and I'm looking forward to that a lot. Trying to think what else. I've been to a Mars Con, I believe.
It's I as the show have gone to Mysticon, been invited to RavenCon, but had to go to Cincinnati and do Mars Con. So I think we're going to cross paths. We'll have to raise
That'd be wonderful.
glass.
No, I'd love that. I'll buy the first round. So
speaking of backstories, you've got quite the backstory yourself with and a lot of geek street cred here.
Oh my.
You too. A DJ and investigator, a comic book and game store owner,
Can we
degrees
call him
in
a
criminal
private
law
dick?
Psychology.
Yes.
I don't think that term's used
Seamus Dick
often enough
Gumshoe.
anymore. That's
Sure.
right.
Yeah.
Forensic science. Let's see. Oh, and worked with the Occult Crime Task Force for the Virginia General Assembly State Crime Commission.
Wait, say that again.
Spooky.
Read that one.
Occult Crime Task Force for the Virginia General Assembly State Crime Commission.
So our state crime commission had a
Occult
metaphysical paranormal investigation group.
I went to VCU. That was where I did my undergrad work. Managed to do some undergrad forensic science work, which my professor recommended me for some graduate work when I was still undergrad. So I was doing a lot of forensic science stuff, and I was how can I say this without sounding like a total psychopath? I was really
why hold back?
really into serial killers and stuff like that. Back in the day, back before serial killers were like action figures and stuff like that.
That's got to be like a great opening line when you're on a first date. So what are you into?
Oh,
I love serial killers.
The funny part is it's more prevalent than you might think. Unfortunately, obviously, I'm meeting the wrong kind of people. But basically, I was doing a lot of work towards doing something with law enforcement. I was really into the forensic science stuff. I tried to get an internship my last year of undergraduate with the Virginia State Police. I was buddies with I don't say buddies, but I worked with a fellow that did profiling for them. I believe he's retired now, but he was a really nice guy.
Since they already had a file on you, they knew about you.
Exactly, sure. There's actually a funny story about that too. But I'm not kidding. When I first moved up to Richmond to go to school, I had been doing PI work, and I went to work for a firm up there in Richmond. So I was doing PI work in my spare time and going to school full time. And at the time, there was a serial killer running around Richmond, strangling folks. And one night I was working a surveillance, and I got introduced up close and personal to the Mechanicsville Sheriff's Department. They came out to say hi to me.
I live right by there now.
I was working a surveillance. I haven't told this story to. If you know me, you know this story. But you guys just met me, so this is a great way to introduce myself to you. It's 3:00 in the morning. I'm working at a domestic, which is basically where you follow the guy to wherever he's not supposed to be going. You make sure he goes in, and then you sit on the place all night. And then if you ever need to, you're called to testify in court that this guy slept over at somebody's house. So it's 3:00 in the morning. It's cold, and I'm tired. I'm trying to stay awake, and all of a sudden these lights come on, and I set up in the passenger. I was laid up across the front seat, and I'm set up on the passenger side, and I see this guy that looks, I swear to God, exactly like John Wayne Gacy, come running across the front of my car with the biggest hand cannon I have ever seen in my life in his hand. And I had a loaded 45 in the glove compartment, and I thought about grabbing that for about 2 seconds, and then I realized, okay, if this guy was going to kill me, I'd already be dead, and there's a light, and there's a lot of other cars. He's a cop. Oh, thank goodness. So I set up in the front seat. The guy wraps the little gun on the window, which I thought was very classy. And
little gun.
About a 6-inch barrel 357. And it rolls.
They get bigger when they're pointed at you.
Yeah, they do. They do.
Many things do, I swear.
The Bugs Bunny cartoon where the guy runs into the cannon barrel and retreat, and then it blows him back out. It looked like that. It was ginormous, and so the guy rolls the window down and says, flashes his badge, and I now see that there's like, I don't know, half a dozen guys, all armed, all pointing them in my general direction, saying, "What are you doing out here?" And I'm like, "I'm a private investigator. I am reaching very slowly into my coat to hand you my credentials and my badge. Here you go. I'm giving you my stuff. Here's my driver's license. Here's my license. I mean no harm to your planet." And the guy takes my stuff and he says, "I'm going to run this." He says, "What are you doing out here?" I said, "I'm working a case." And he says, "Well, who are you out here looking at?" And I'm like, and this cops love this. I can't tell you that because I'm been contracted by my firm, and you can't you really are not supposed to tell them any specifics about what you're doing. Cops hate it when you say I can't tell you that. They really are not real happy with that. So I say I really can't tell you, but I'm out here on a surveillance. It's domestic, and they go off to run my credentials, and I kind of take a little relaxing breath, and I put my hands down by my lap, and I hear the sound that you will never ever not. You'll never mistake this for anything else. It's the sound of chock chock. It's a shotgun being chambered, and there's a fellow right behind me, right behind my passenger or my driver's side back door, pointing the shotgun at the back of my head, saying, "Sir, could you keep your hands on the steering wheel?" And I'm like, "Absolutely, I'll keep my hands on the steering wheel. Here you are. I'm good to go. Here you go. I'll keep them right here. I'll keep them here forever if you want. I'll never wash them again. They'll stay right here, officer." Just so. They run my stuff, and they basically tell me, he asked me again, who am I out here watching? I say, I can't tell you. They say, well, you're on a private parking lot. Get out of here. So I say, thank you so much for my life. Thank you, kind gentlemen. Goodbye. And down the road I go, this is pre-cell phone days. That's how old I am. And I drive down the street to a 7-Eleven to call my boss and say I got made, and surveillance is over, and that some of his former colleagues in law enforcement nearly put holes in me. And while I'm calling and telling them this, the whole sheriff's department pulls into the parking lot to get some coffee. So they come and hang out and watch me, and then they escort me to the edge of town, which I thought was very nice of them. Very polite. So
they were bored that night, weren't they?
Well, this guy, he murdered a lot of women, and they eventually caught him. He was actually one of the first people convicted on DNA evidence. And his name was Timothy Spencer. I don't know if that rings any bells for you or not, but he was a very bad guy, and I understand why they were doing it, because I was watching a bunch of apartments, and this guy would like break into basement apartments, hide in the woman's closet till she came home, and then jump out and strangle her and rape her, and he was leaving no evidence at all. And they eventually caught him on some DNA, and that was a long shot because at the time. Matter of fact, he tried to appeal because DNA was an experimental technique at the time. It was still didn't have enough credence in the scientific community to be considered, like fingerprints or other things. It was still a little fringy. And but that was just one of my many wonderful adventures as a private investigator.
That's definitely a cool story. But we do have to wrap this up now. Why don't you tell folks where they can find you, what upcoming events, where online they can find you, all that good stuff.
All right. I am going to be, if you check Tor.com website, I'm going to be in California around the 15th, 16th, 17th of the month at several bookstores. In one bookstore in Santa Clara, another bookstore in San Francisco. I'm going to be in Tennessee on Halloween at a Barnes & Noble doing some signings. And as far as getting a hold of me, I am on Twitter. It's author R.S. Belcher. I have a Facebook page under my name. Again, author R.S. Belcher. There's one under Six Gun Tarot. There's one under Shotgun Arcana. And I have a website, which is sixguntarot.com. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, that's what I'm looking at. So, yeah, you're good to go on that one.
All right.
And most immediately, you've got Shotgun Arcana coming out tomorrow, October 7th.
Yes, please go read it. My children need to go to college. Please buy it, read it. I hope you enjoy it. If you don't enjoy it, I still want to hear from you and let me know what you think. But I hope you guys will give it a read and let me know what you think.
So, real quick, are you going to MarsCon in January? Do you know yet?
I think I am guest at MarsCon? I'm trying to remember. I may just come as a civilian, even if I don't get invited as a guest.
Well,
But
anyway it goes, I'll be there, and then
all right.
maybe catch you up again with you at Mysticon, and then possibly after that RavenCon.
Are you a Scotch man by any chance?
I am. I like a Jameson 12 year is my current favorite.
All right. Well, I'll throw you some Scotch at you. How about that?
Awesome. Do you enjoy cigars?
I do.
I'll bring a couple reasonable cigars.
All right. Very cool. Very
Okay. Thank you so much, guys. Hang out with us. Give us a couple minutes, and we'll be right back.